Hi, my name is June Oakes, and my paper is called A Day That Will Live in Infamy. It's to evaluate Franklin Roosevelt's famous speech titled Pearl Harbor Address to the Nation. And it's to understand how and why Roosevelt's speech motivated and inspired so many in a time of war and despair. December 7th, 1941. Today, many of us know this date as simply Pearl Harbor Day, or a day off from work. There is so much more to this date, though, than that. December 7th, 1941, America came under attack by the Japanese. This attack inspired the President Franklin Roosevelt to write his famous speech called A Day of Infamy. Roosevelt was compelled to write this speech after the devastating attack on the Hawaiian Islands, resulting in over 2,400 deaths of American military and civilian personnel. He was able to rally our nation together in a time of grief and despair with his dialogue and his speaking techniques, while at the same time he inspired Congress to declare war. And all of this was done in just 25 sentences and fewer than 500 words. Let's take a look at December 7th, 1941 and see why and how Roosevelt's speech at the time was so compelling and inspiring. According to the website AmericanRhetoric.com, America was at peace with the Japanese when the Japanese decided to attack the Hawaiian Islands without any warning. The violent attack left thousands dead and many more wounded. By the next day, December 8th, Roosevelt was prompted to deliver his now famous speech, A Day in Infamy. He reached out to a devastated America using words that were emotionally charged and never to be forgotten. In a website titled Franklin Roosevelt Pearl Harbor Address by Andrew Dugan, dated 2012, words such as infamy, deliberately planned, premeditated invasion, and this form of treachery were words used throughout Roosevelt's speech, and they characterized the Japanese as deceitful and dishonest. Roosevelt's speaking techniques can be seen throughout the famous address to the people. One of the techniques used by Roosevelt was to spark the audience's emotion, was a way he used the different variations of the word Japanese. According to Andrew Dugan, by using a repetitive, exhaustive variety of forms like Empire of Japan, Japanese government, Japanese forces, he was able to make clear that the attack was not just by the Japanese military, but also by the empire and the Japanese government as a whole. Some of the other techniques used by Roosevelt were the use of reflective sentiments, such as a date that will live in infamy, and no matter how long it takes, America people will win through victory. These strong techniques help to convey his message to the American people. After hearing and seeing Roosevelt's speech, millions of Americans who had been listening to the details of the attack shared the president's outrage and commitment to defending the nation. The day after their speech, men flocked to recruiting stations to sign up and protect our nation, and Congress voted to declare war on Japan. It ended the American isolation movement at the time. Having lived in Hawaii and stationed on Oahu, where I worked in one of the buildings that has been bombed and still has the craters that are visible to this day, it is easy to understand the devastation and panic that must have taken place following that attack. As we have seen from Roosevelt's speech, he was a good talker who motivated a country into action. He used repetitive words to get the point across, and he highlighted words to make sure they carried the weight of his message. He used an emotional appeal to win Congress to declare war, doing all of this within an hour of his speech and in less than 500 words. It is encouraging to know that a good speech can do great things.